I just remember sitting straight up in the bed and being like, what do you mean there's two heartbeats?
I just made a noise that I don't think I will ever make again in my life. Oh! And my husband was just shell-shocked.
We kept it to ourselves until like 12 weeks, me and my other half knowing about it and then wondering what everything was going to be like.
That moment changes everything. You're not just having a baby, you're raising more than one at once and quietly wondering if anyone else truly gets it. Welcome to the Twins Mummy NI podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by three mums of multiples as we talk about the reality behind it all. From finding out that we were having our twins, to starting nursery, identity, and the real cost of raising more than one child at the same time. This is the Multiples Mums group chat. Let's get into it.
And they said, I'm just from outside Ballymena in Northern Ireland, and I have a set of beautiful twin boys who will be 2 now in August, and a little girl who's going to be 5 in October. So very busy in this house.
I'm Mairead. I'm originally from Tipperary, living in Dublin. I have identical twin girls who are 3 and a little girl who is 2.
When you're joining us from your car today, I know it's a busy weekend in your household. And last but not least, we have the lovely Jennifer.
So I live in County Durham in England, born and bred, and we have lovely twin boys who are almost 3. They'll be 3 in June. And that's us.
Lovely. Well, listen, Lisa, Mairead and Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us all today. Let's go right back to the very beginning, to that moment where everything changes. What was it actually like when you first found out that you were expecting your twins?
I just remember sitting straight up in the bed and being like, what do you mean there's 2 heartbeats? And I'm looking down and my husband standing at my feet and the colour drained from his face. And when we were in getting our scan, there was a wee student and she looked at Ryan and goes, did you hear that, Daddy? It's twins. And Ryan was like, I can't tell everyone my whole pregnancy. I just nervous laughed anytime anyone mentioned it was twins. I was like, it's twins.
Nothing prepares you for that moment. Sure, it doesn't. What about you, Mairead?
Yeah, I can quite clearly. Like, it's nearly 4 years ago now. Oh my gosh. Originally, I went into the hospital because I had spotting. And I remember the gynae guy brought me in and he did a scan. And he said I had vanishing twin syndrome.
Oh, wow.
So that meant that I would have lost, say, one twin was measuring at 8 weeks and the other twin was only measuring at 6 weeks. And he couldn't detect a heartbeat. So he booked me in for the early pregnancy assessment unit on the following Tuesday. So this was the Thursday. So then I went from Thursday to Tuesday thinking that I had a twin pregnancy and lost a twin and I was now having one. And then on the Tuesday to go in and the sonographer to find like 2 babies. You know, it was obviously a relief. So I had like a few days to process the fact that it's a twin pregnancy. But yeah, it still was a big shock. And then obviously you're hoping that everything's okay. Like we kept this to ourselves until like 12 weeks. So I had 4 whole weeks of having it, just me and my other half knowing about it. And then wondering what everything was going to be like. And then it's just the relief when, you know, everything is okay and you pass certain stages and then it's the constant scan. But like, I suppose you wouldn't have it any other way now.
We decided to go for an early scan. We found it out in November that we were pregnant and my NHS 12-week scan wasn't going to be until January and we were going to go on holiday at Christmas time. So we said, right, let's go for an early scan, check out what's going on. I didn't want to go away not knowing what was happening in my body.
Yeah.
So I think we were about 7 or 8 weeks and we went for an early scan and she put the probe in, started looking around, and she said, oh, you know, have you been pregnant before? I was like, no. She said, and you've definitely got no other children? I was like, definitely not. And then she said, and she turned the screen to her colleague and said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And I just said, oh my God, there's 2, isn't there? And she went, yeah. And I just made a noise that I don't think I will ever make again in my life. Kind of, oh! And my husband was just shell-shocked. He always says his jaw hit the floor and stayed there for about 10 minutes. So we're able to process it. And well, sometimes we still don't quite process it. We'll say to each other, can you believe there's 2 of them? But then the scans, my boys are identical. So from about 16 weeks, we had scans every 2 weeks. So I loved my pregnancy because I loved seeing them so often. And I was very, very fortunate that I had a very smooth pregnancy. Just loved it. So, yeah, that was our story.
So let's fast forward to the early days. What was that really like?
Very big difference going from having one to then having the twins. So with Stephanie, I had 2 scans my whole pregnancy, to having the twins and being scanned every other week. It was surreal.
Yeah.
It was great. You got to see them, got to see how much they were growing week on week. But it was just 2 completely different experiences.
I think I always say if we had another and it was a singleton, I couldn't cope with just 2 scans. I would need to have more.
I did that with my second pregnancy. I went and got private scans done because Lisa was saying you just get the 2 scans, like the 12-week scan, the 20-week scan, and then you're not scanned again.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Bad.
My experience is quite similar to Mairead's. I had a little girl after the twins, and it was such a completely different experience.
Wow.
I thought every pregnant person have that experience with lots of different scans and lots of different appointments. So it is such a big shock. And I was exactly like you, Mairead. I wanted to get extra scans just for that reassurance, because that was normal for me coming through the twin pregnancy. It's not just the shock of finding out that we were having twins. It's the shock just how different your reality becomes overnight. But very quickly life moves on. And before you know it, you're facing the next big milestone, that of starting nursery. Let's talk about it. I'm going to be completely honest with you. My twins are starting nursery in September, and I am not looking forward to it at all. I have been a stay-at-home mum, so it has been Ayla, Ara and me at home for quite a long time. Now baby Lara has joined us, and all of a sudden that's going to be completely changed. Does anybody else feel the same way as I do?
Well, my girls started preschool last September. Like you, I have been a stay-at-home mum since the girls were born. I was a primary school teacher in a previous life, and I'm lucky enough to have had the opportunity to just stay at home with them from the start. I was worried for myself more than for them, but they had never been away from me before. So luckily enough, our preschool is literally right across the road from our house. So they've been seeing the preschool constantly anyway, and we'd hear the little ones out playing when we'd walk by before they had started school. And we quite openly spoke about it, but it doesn't really prepare them for being away from you if they haven't already. So on the first day of preschool at the end of August last year, I went in with them and you got to stay and play. And then they had a day where they didn't go in, where the older children, went into school. So then the Friday they went in for their first full day, and my little girls were only able to stay for an hour. They were so upset. And I was waiting for the phone call. I didn't go anywhere on purpose. So I stayed and sat at home and waited, and they were quite upset. So for about 2 weeks, they only stayed for an hour to an hour and a half. And then we threw them in at the deep end and we just left them for the 3 hours. And then they were fine. It was a big adjustment period. And then obviously when they start school, they start to pick up little bugs and colds and flus and things like that. So they have been off a good bit too. And I suppose because I'm not in work, it's okay for me. Like, it's okay to, I'm there to care for them, but I really feel for the parents who have got their full-time jobs and are mammies at the same time, because obviously it's the stress of them having to arrange childcare or somebody to look after their child while they're sick. But yeah, it was a major adjustment for the girls and for me, I won't lie. But now they're completely into the routine of things. They love school so much, and it's just so lovely to see them skipping into school every morning. So while it's a big adjustment for them starting and for you starting as well, and getting them ready, toilet training, whatever, preparing them for school. But to see them blossom like they have done. And it's so good for them to just have time away from me, and for me to have time away from them as well. But for them to be in a different learning environment, I feel like they have really flourished.
If there was any advice that you could give to us whose little ones are starting September, what would that be? What works?
I suppose it's just you take it one day at a time. One of my little girls was very, very nervous starting. From the minute she'd get up in the morning, she'd be saying, "I don't want to go to school today, Mammy. I want to stay at home with Mammy." It was really tugging at my heartstrings, but I knew in my heart of hearts that I had to just encourage her. And even though she didn't want to go and she was crying, I knew she would be fine when she would go in. After a few minutes, she was fine. The teachers might have to come out and carry her in, but she was fine after a few minutes. They'd read her a story and she would calm down. In our situation, because we have twins, they always have each other. So one always looked after the other, and they would come home and say, "Mammy, Aideen was upset today, but I made her feel better. I gave her a hug."
Yeah.
it was so heartwarming knowing that they had each other. It's a whole new learning curve. And like when you find out you're pregnant with twins, you never think ahead as far as school. You're just kind of living through week by week, and then, they're born, and then all of a sudden you blink and they're in school already. And you're going, how did that happen? But very much, Carla, it's take it one day at a time.
Being a teacher as well, it helps you see the other side, that you know that they will be okay.
Are you a teacher yourself, Jennifer?
I am, yeah. I was full-time before the boys, and then had the boys, tried to go back part-time, and it just wasn't the right fit. So left, and now I do 2 days a week, which is just enough.
And with the next big chapter, it can stir up lots of emotions. And if you have felt that too, you are not alone.
Our boys are going to start nursery school, so the nursery is attached to the primary school that they'll go to. So it very much feels to me like they'll be starting school, even though it's only nursery.
Yeah.
And they will just do 5 mornings a week, so it's not straight into full time. And I feel very mixed about it. I'm excited for them to, make new friends and learn new things and have time away from me. But I'm very much somebody else is going to be in control of them. And it is giving the teachers that trust and putting them into the care of somebody else and not knowing how their day's going. When I go to work, they're only with my parents. Yeah. So I can check in and text and how are they doing, and I get pictures during the day of what they've been up to. And I think I'll find it really hard letting that go a little bit. But I know they're ready for it. I'm ready for a bit of a break, I think, if I'm honest. I'll maybe try to pick up an extra day of work, but then having 2 mornings to myself a week, I don't know what I'll do with myself. In the house, maybe.
I'm really interested to hear what it's like, obviously, from your perspective, being a teacher as well. Does that make it harder for you?
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit. Our boys are like sponges. They pick up so much. And I'm finding I'm trying to rein back of teaching them too much before they go to school.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them to then be bored at school. They can count, they know their alphabet, they know some of the phonics sounds, and I'm like, I need to stop a little bit, because otherwise they'll get switched off at school, and I don't want that to happen. But yeah, part of me wants to get a job in the school that they're going to go to.
What about you, Lisa? When do your wee ones start? It'll not be this year, is it? Next year?
No, it's not this. It's next September. They'll go pre-pre. So they will. Stephanie's in at the minute, and she loved it. But I find this different because they see her going every morning.
Yeah.
They're itching to get out of the car and go in with her.
Oh, is that right? Isn't it right?
They go up to the door, and then I work full time, so my lanes are split between my parents, Ryan's parents, and then childminder.
Yeah.
Just sort of break up the cost. Mommy would walk them to the door with Stephanie when she's dropping Stephanie, and Mommy's like the crying and the trailing of them to get them back into the car. They just want to go in and play with her.
One extra little question I'd love to ask, keeping within the nursery starting school theme, is there anything about this stage, and probably for you, Mairead, because you've been through it, is there anything that felt uniquely challenging because there are multiples?
So originally, we were told that the girls would have to be toilet trained when they started. So last June, we would have had our information evening at the preschool, and, we were given a list of things. And obviously, toilet training was in the back of my mind anyway. It was my plan for last summer. And I was so worried about it because in my head, I was like, okay, get both of them trained at the exact same time. Everything would be fine. It'd be all done and dusted in a week. But that's not how it worked. So one of my little girls was ready in August to be toilet trained. And so she was toilet trained by the time she went to school. And Avian was a completely different kettle of fish. She just was not ready, did not want to go near the potty. There was major standoffs. Yeah. So I had to just take a step back. My anxiety was through the roof trying to get both of them trained. So like Chris said to me, Mairead, would you not just train one of them, and then in a few weeks' time, you can start again? And that, in the end, that worked out really well, because I took her out of school for a week and just trained her, and everything's been going really well. Like, we still have to keep an eye on her because she's not like Raiding. She won't tell you when she needs to go. You have to just constant reminder, constant take her to the toilet. So it's funny that even though they're identical twins, you don't just assume that they'll be ready at the same time to do everything. That's where the phrase comparison is the thief of joy. I remember when the girls started talking, Radine was always like, very chatty. And I was always worried about Avine. And then when they had their 2-year developmental check, I remember being so afraid that, verbally she wouldn't be the same as Radine. But eventually, after a couple of months, she came on. So I suppose toilet training was definitely the biggest thing in the back of my mind before starting school. And some schools and creches are different. Like some schools will take children who aren't toilet trained. So in the end, Avine went to school in a pull-up, and we never had any issues with that. And then I just took the leap. She probably would have been ready before February to be potty trained, to be honest with you, but I don't think I was ready. That was the biggest challenge in my head. And I think I built it up myself.
I'd love to actually pick up on that point. We're all twin mums, and all of our twins, yes, some of them are identical, but that doesn't mean that they're identical at everything. And I think it's important to celebrate the differences between our children. Differences in my household would be Aria is the loud one, Ayla is the quiet one. Ayla's nice and chilled, where Aria's like me, she bulldozes on, speaks first and then thinks after. I couldn't get two children that are completely different in every single way. Up until now, I have dressed my girls the same, but once they're a little bit more aware of their identity, and I would like to encourage them to dress whatever way they want to matches their personality. White is cute at the minute, that will be something I would like to incorporate into our home and celebrating each of the twins' individuality. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Because they are two completely different human beings.
It's very identical twin boys, and everyone would say to me, like, oh, I can't tell the difference in them. And I was like, if you spend 2 minutes in their company, you'll sit and tell the difference in them. They have completely different personalities. From the start, we never dressed them the same. We've always done maybe the same clothes, just different colours. But I was surprised how early on their personality showed and how different they could be.
From quiet worries to shared understanding, why questions about your multiples development are more common than you think.
And even all the milestones, like crawling, one of mine started crawling, I think 2 weeks before the other, and walking. Anthony walked a full month before Kelly had even attempted to get near walking.
Yeah, same story at our house.
Yeah, we had a different, maybe weeks between them walking and crawling and rolling and all of that. My two, one is a really clear speaker, and my second twin, his name is Cam, and he can't say his C's. So he calls himself Tam.
He's Carla.
So I always worry about that, whether the speech development. And I think in terms of them starting nursery, I worry that they're going to be, with my teacher head on, at school at the moment, we've got some triplets and they're seen as the triplets.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to be labelled as the twins. I want the teachers to see them as individuals. My two are quite similar in personality. They're both loud. And people say, oh, what are they like? Who's the leader? And depending on where we are and what the situation is, one can be more outgoing than the other. It's an instant thing to think about how they're going to be different and how other people will see them as different, not just as the twins.
I worry about this all the time. Mairead, what about in your experience of nursery? Are they seen as the twins?
Yeah, they try not to call them but they have they call them the girlies.
Yes.
But it's always but a lot of the children at school would be the twins. And I think that's quite cute because some of their little friends at school will be like, hi twinnies, because they can't tell them apart, and that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But like Jen was saying, it's nice. It would be nice for them to be seen as separate individuals, because they are very much I do dress them the same, not so much for preschool. Sometimes they're matching going into preschool because it's harder for the teacher to tell them apart when they dress them the same. And even with my third little girl, I now have started buying matching outfits for her.
Oh, yeah, that's so
Whenever I get new stuff for Blaheen, I've shopped so much on secondhand websites and things like that, and Vinted, and I buy lots of stuff for preschool for them from there. So now when they see something new, because Blaheen, my youngest, is obsessed with diggers. So I managed to nab her a summer dress with diggers on. And then they automatically, they're like, I want that dress. I'm going, oh gosh.
But beyond all the milestones, there's something a lot of us don't expect. The way becoming a mum, especially to multiples, can completely shift your sense of identity. Do you ever feel that you're seen primarily as a mum of twins rather than you?
Yeah.
We all know what we're talking about. There's the mum with the twins. Like most of the twat scripts and things that we go to, and the only one there with twins too as well. But do you ever feel whenever you're out and about in public that people will see you, as a twin mum instead of you? Do you ever experience that, or is it just me?
No, you can't go anywhere with the trends without someone stopping, going like, "You have your hands full, busy nice." And they're like, "Yeah, I've heard that 300 times today."
No, it is hard to, because sometimes people mean well. If I'm just wanting to run to the shop to get a pint of milk, a loaf of bread and come home, maybe that takes 2 hours. By the time you've answered everybody's questions, by the time you get round the shop.
Yeah.
It's hard. But I suppose in keeping with the identity of ourselves, is there anything that any of you like to do to sort of reconnect with yourself, even in small ways? I know one thing that I used to do before I became a mum more of was play the piano and go to the gym. And it is so hard, especially when I had 3 under 3, to be able to do the things that I once enjoyed, because there's simply, number one, isn't the time, and number two, I don't have the energy, because at the end of the day, I was sleeping, I just kind of crawl into bed sometimes because I'm so exhausted. Is there any little things that you do just for you now?
So yeah, I've decided just to pick up running again. It's always something I've done on and off as a teenager when I was in my 20s. And then since having the boys, I've never really done any form of exercise. Tried the Couch 5K in the year we were getting married. So that was 2023. And managed 3 sessions, ditched it. But this time I thought I'm going to try it. And I'm getting there. I've been going 2 weeks and I feel really good about it. I'm enjoying it. It's a nice bit of headspace. It's half an hour out of the day and it's just, it's good. And it makes my body feel good. It's nice for the boys to just spend time with their dad. Yeah, so I'm on a mission to keep going and I feel like this is my time.
Good for you, Jennifer. Like, I really admire you. It's so important, to have something just for you. Lisa, I know, Jennifer, like, we have talked a lot about our twins and our children, but what about you? Is there anything that you have done to create a little bit of time just for yourself?
Well, me and a couple of my friends, all our mommies, all of us felt as though that's just become your identity. You were no longer Lisa, you were just mommy. So we started once a month. We block out 3 hours in our diary and the 3 of us just go away. And we don't talk about weans, we don't talk about work, and we just chat about everything in life and gossip, and just as if we were back when we were teenagers. Because I know you'll feel the same. Like, after you've weaned, you do lose your big friend groups and it gets smaller and smaller. We went through lots of times growing up together and then started all motherhood right at the same time. And now this is all the children right in that toddler stage or up. So we're all just trying to come back and try and find ourselves again and what we enjoy.
Find that you lose who you are. Going,
so much.
Yeah,
Because you're surviving, during the newborn stage, you're surviving off very little sleep and it's just on to the next thing, especially with twins, because you'll get one settled and sleeping and then next thing the other one will start stirring again and you're just back into a continuous cycle.
Absolutely. Like, those newborn days are just relentless with the 2 of them. I'd love to pick up the point, a very important point you mentioned there about friendships and how those can change. I know in my experience, certainly whenever I became a mum, a lot of my friendships were there beforehand, were not there. Nothing happened. That just seemed to happen overnight. Have you ever experienced that? Like, have your friendships changed since you became mums?
Big time. You find I had a quite big friend group before I became a mum, and then again, nothing happened. It's just maybe I wasn't fit to drop everything to go out shopping at that particular time. The rest of them were going because it was during that time, it was during feeding time, and it was like, it's not worth bringing the weans out. And then it just sort of starts to drift and dwindle, and then you find that you're left with 2 or maybe 3 friends, and the rest are all away.
Yeah, I found that in the first few months, everybody was really interested, wanted to come and see you, wanted to come and see the babies. As you go on and as they get older, I feel like everybody lives such busy lives, and when you're living the mum life, it's really hard to stay on top of, dropping people a message and catching up with people. You get to the end of the day and you're just done. So you might not message your friends as much as you should and stay in contact, and friendships do dwindle a little bit, and it takes effort, and everybody's got busy lives, obviously the time's not there to go out and see your friends so much. It's hard to get two looked after, never mind three, like.
Yeah.
There's a side of motherhood that doesn't really get talked about enough. Loneliness and the mental load of carrying it all.
Do you know what I was thinking about whenever both of you were talking about there? I know in my experience, whenever I became a mum and talking about the friendships that were lost there, I noticed a real feeling of loneliness. And it kind of brings us on to the next topic that I would love to talk about in the podcast is mental health and motherhood.
I'd really love to open up that conversation.
I find that we can't spend a day in the house. If we stay in the house, I get demented. We just have to get out every day. That really helped. I found the best place to go to boost yourself was Marks and Spencer's Cafe. I just get out to the local supermarket, and now I'm the same even when they're bigger. If it gets to 3 or 4 o'clock and we haven't been anywhere, I'm like, right, get out on the bikes. Just saying, getting out of the house, no matter what time, and just learning if you're going to meet somebody, you're probably going to be late, but just accepting that. I never give an exact time. If I'm meeting someone, I'll say, I'll be there around about 10:30.
10-ish. That's my favourite thing to do.
And people just have to accept that you are going to be late, because there's always somebody that needs a toilet. There's always somebody that wants a different pair of shoes on. There's always somebody, I don't want that car in the car with me. I want this digger in the car. You've just got to roll with it.
Yeah, love that.
Just breathe through it.
If we're 10 minutes late, that's fine. They'll still get outside, they'll get fresh air, and my life will be easier for it.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Lisa? Is there anything that you do to mind your mental health in motherhood? My biggest one was going back to work.
Really?
Because at work, I'm just Lisa and I have a job to do and get it done. That's what I was saying to Jen earlier. I went back to work when the twins were 6 months.
Wow.
With going back to work, it's great in so many senses because you have your own identity. You're a person. It was great. I loved it. But then you also have it married with mum guilt of, am I missing out? And the boys crawled for the first time with the childminder.
Oh, Lisa.
And it was just that guilt of coming home, and she's like, have they cried or have they crawled before? And I was like, no. She's like, okay, you might be in for a surprise this evening, because she didn't want to tell me that they had crawled with her. So that's where it was difficult. So it's great in so many senses because you get to be out and speaking to people and talk about being just normal and work, but then you feel like you're missing out so much on them growing up. It's like you blink and now my twins are nearly 2 in August, and it's like, where did my tiny babies go? Time's going far too fast. I'm still very much a stay-at-home mum. My plan is, once all of my children are at school, to go back to work. I'm really nervous about that. I don't know what that will be like. For people who are listening, how do you find working and being a mum at the same time? I think you need the routine, and you need to then cherish the moments you have at home with them. I had no choice. I wanted to go back, and I had to go back to work. So the routine from Monday to Friday, our house runs like a military routine. Everyone's up at a certain time, you get breakfast at a certain time, you go to childminders, I go to work, I lift you, and then we come home, and then we have about maybe an hour to 2 hours in the evening before they're all going to bed. So it's straight in. And as I said to Ryan, if we're getting dinner when everyone's in bed and sleeping, that's fine. Mm-hmm. We just have to roll with it. It's more important that the Waynes get played with, and we get to sit and chat with them about how their days was, more so than us worrying about our dinner. That's hard. What about you, Jennifer? Is it similar in your house?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate that I only do 2 days, and 2 days is enough for us, but those 2 days are long and full on. We are up and out of the house at 7:15 in the morning and generally get back around about 5 p.m. As I've said previously, luckily the boys just go with my parents, so I drop them off and then I go to work. And I often find that on the evenings I get back from work, I'm much less patient with my children than I am usually, because I've spent the day with primary school children, 30 children in a class, and I've used all my patience up with them. So I really have to make a conscious effort to be more patient and, not be a little bit snappy with them if, they're not eating their tea or whatever. But on the whole, I find that I've got the balance quite just right at the moment for us and our family. Yeah, and my husband's really helpful as well. He works from home, so he's always he's home to help us out the house in the morning and then ready to take us back in on a night time when we get in. He's generally finished what he needs to do and can be on hand to help.
I find the morning so much worse than the evening, trying to get everyone out. Because Ryan's the same, he's very helpful in the mornings because it's just chaos. And right, like whatever you set them out for breakfast is not what they wanted for breakfast.
Somewhere between the nappies, nursery runs and nights of survival, you can lose your name to mum. If you're listening and are feeling this too, please know that you are not alone. Let's move into something that I think many mums might relate to.
I posted a reel very recently on Instagram and I was a bit nervous about talking about it, and that was the idea of guilt experienced by mums with multiples. And I genuinely, with my hand on my heart, thought that I was the only one that thought this. I carried so much guilt for years with things like, because there was always the twins, there were two of them and there was only one of me, I felt that they didn't get as much freedom as other children might have. So, for example, they were constantly in the pram and were out and about because of safety. I had little child gates in the house, so it had safe areas that I knew that I could put the twins in their little toy room and I knew that they were safe if I had to make a start with dinner. Do you ever experience that as a mum of multiples? Do you feel life can be a little bit more restricting?
A little bit. I find going to a park is really hard. You kind of make them stay together and you can't let them be where they want to be. One wants to be up on a slide and one wants to be on a seesaw, and it's hard then keeping an eye, especially when it's quite an open park, like play park. That's what I find is like where they don't get as much of a chance as kids. However, at home, we had a stairgate on the living room for a while, keep them contained in there when they first got on the move. But now, quite often they'll play in separate rooms. One will be in the kitchen playing with me and the other will be in the living room playing. And we give them that bit of freedom because we know it's fairly safe at home. Not too much they can hurt themselves on.
It's when you go out to the likes of soft play and anything, like I know the difference from my wee girl to my boys. Because she was on her own, she had my full attention and we would have been there a lot more. And then with the twins, it's like, it's too much work because they want to go opposite directions and it's which one do I run after first.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's something that I know many of our listeners will have experience of that. The biggest thing is getting out and about and making sure we have eyes on everybody. It is so hard to run in two different directions. Like the park, at the minute, I don't go to the park on my own anymore. I have to admit, especially when there's the three of us now, because I need to have a pair of eyes on everybody.
And then there's a side of motherhood that doesn't feel emotional, but hits just as hard.
One last topic I'd like to talk about, and that is the cost of childcare in each of our locations. Jennifer, what's it like in England?
In England, there's funding for, from 9 months now, I think. There's a salary cap on that. So when I originally went back to work, when the boys were just coming up to 1, we did put them into daycare nursery for a brief period. We didn't qualify for any of the funding for that. So we were paying for 2 kids and it wasn't working. It was so expensive every month. The boys were getting poorly so often being at nursery. So we decided to pull them out. And then there's 2 and 3-year-old funding. So you can get up to 30 hours. So when my boys start nursery, and they're 3, they'll get 15 hours free. But again, depending on your salary, your household income, you can get up to 30 hours with that. However, I've always found that a little bit unfair because it's based on one child and we obviously have 2 children going together and there's no allowance for that. With the the household income cap on that. It's at a certain figure and we were hundreds of pounds over that figure.
Yeah.
So we missed out on a smidge, and we had 2 children where there could have been an allowance for that really to get the 3 hours. We've relied on grandparents for childcare.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, I know here in Northern Ireland, like, my plan was very much to go back to work. But then obviously we had 2 children, and I priced childcare here in a little childcare facility in the town near where I live, and it was costing something around £2,000 a month to look after the children. So I decided that I had to stay at home because of finance reasons.
It didn't work out to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is quite unfair for families of multiples out there. The cost is fierce. You have childcare costs, like you have double the nappies, double the perhaps formula, double everything. And I definitely think there should be a lot more support out there for families of multiples. What do you think, Lisa, in terms of childcare? And do you think there should be more support out there for us?
Definitely should be more support, especially when you have multiples, because it's a double hit at once for the childcare. And as you said, Jen, any of the funding out there, they're looking at household income as if it's only the one child, whether it's 2 childs. I have 3 in childcare at the minute, and if it hadn't been for my parents and Ryan's parents helping out during the week, it wouldn't be impossible to go back to work full time. It just wouldn't be worth it. You would be working just to pay childcare.
And I would love to continue to raise awareness on the Twins Mummy and I podcast, because it is hard for families out there. It's hard for all families, but particularly, especially families of multiples, where there obviously are more than one child, and there are people like ourselves that maybe have had to cut down hours or not return to work purely because of the cost of childcare.
For many families of multiples, love doubles, but so does the costs.
Yes, we are coming towards the end of this podcast episode today. And before we wrap up, is there anything that you feel that some of our mums of multiples who are listening today might like to hear?
It's just chaos, and just roll with it.
Just accept the chaos. There'll always be washing to do.
There'll always be someone crying. It may be me.
Truly do think that we were made to be twin mums. I think they only pick the people who can do it. I feel like this was meant for me. As soon as my boys were born, I looked at them both and I just knew one would never have been enough. It's amazing.
That is, and it seems so daunting when you're at that stage at scans, trying to prepare, and then these 2 little newborns arrive, and it's just so magical. And then as they grow, you get to watch them grow together, and they fight the bit out, but they are the best of friends. And just sitting back, we joke at the minute, our favourite thing to do is just watch our twins, because they're just like 2 little drunk men, and they just run round. And 1 minute they're hugging each other, and next minute they're pulling each other's hair.
Yeah. Going back to the very beginning of this chat, we talked about finding out that we were expecting our twins. Like, in that moment, I'll never forget it. And I thought, how in the world am I ever going to manage twins? Just celebrated their 3rd birthday there a couple of weeks ago. And honest to God, it's the best thing that's ever happened. Like, my whole life has completely changed, but changed for the better. If I didn't have my children, I wouldn't actually be talking to you today. I would never have met you. Our paths even would never cross. So it's wonderful. Yes, there are lots of hard days, but it is one of the most beautiful, rewarding experiences as well. And I'm so thankful to have met you 3, our little children.
Let's do a quick fire round before we finish. Matching outfits, yes or no?
Yes, no.
And 1 word to describe your motherhood journey so far.
Today, the word would have to be wild.
And chaotic. It's probably the best word to describe motherhood so far.
Listening to all of your stories today, one thing is very clear. There is no single way to do motherhood right. But there is something powerful in hearing that you're not doing it alone. This is the Multiples Mums group chat, and what you've heard today is exactly what this series is all about. Honest conversations, shared experiences, and reminding mums of multiples that they are not alone in this. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with another mum who might like to hear it. And if you'd like to be part of a future group chat, you can find me over on Instagram at twinsmummyni. Until next time, Take care, and remember, you were never meant to do this alone.